For most of us, we believe children are innocent little people who have a bright future ahead of them. But today, we will look at some of the most terrifying kids and what they did. In May 1929, 6-year-old Carl Mahan killed his 8-year-old friend over a piece of scrap metal. They both wanted the scrap metal to sell for money. His friend managed to beat Carl and took the scrap away from him. Carl then went home and took his father's shotgun and shot his friend, killing him. At the time, he was one of the youngest murder defendants in the state of Kentucky. In 2001, Derek and Alex King were just 13 and 12 when they clubbed their father's head with a baseball bat and killed him. They then proceeded to burn their father's home along with his body. The boys were tried and both pleaded guilty to third-degree murder. Derek served 8 years while Alex served 7. At the age of 11, Mary Bell killed 2 young boys, aged 3 and 4. She strangled both victims to death and had helped killing the second victim from her 13-year-old friend Norma Bell. Mary and Norma both were tried and convicted for the crimes. However, Norma was acquitted. Mary was sentenced to a lifelong detention, but she was released at the age of 23. She only served 12 years. In October 2014, 10-year-old Tristan Carilla murdered a 90-year-old lady who was staying at his grandfather's home. At the time, Tristan was visiting his grandfather's house where he choked the woman with a wooden cane and punched her several times. Tristan claimed that he was angry at her for entering his room and yelling at him. At the time, Tristan was charged as an adult due to state law and was kept inside an adult prison. His trial was later moved to juvenile court. In 2009, at the age of 11, Jordan Brown shot and killed his father's pregnant fiancée with his hunting rifle. The 26-year-old soon-to-be mother-in-law was shot to death while she was sleeping. Her unborn infant died as well due to oxygen deprivation. Her 4-year-old daughter discovered the woman's body at the time it happened, and Jordan was arrested within 24 hours. He was initially charged as an adult with 2 counts of first-degree murder. He is currently in detention until he turns 21. In 1999, 12-year-old Lionel Tate beat a 6-year-old girl who his mother was babysitting to death. Lionel and Tiffany were left alone upstairs for a short while, and by the time Tate's mother went to check on them, Tiffany was not breathing. Lionel claimed that they were wrestling and he slammed her head into a table. In 2001, when Lionel was 14, he was convicted of first-degree murder. He became one of the youngest people to be sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. However, his sentence was later overturned with a more lenient plea deal. At the age of 14, Josh Phillips beat and stabbed his 8-year-old neighbor, Maddie Clifton, to death. Maddie's body was discovered hidden in Josh's room when his mother was cleaning it. Josh admitted to killing her and explained the incident that led up to it. He claimed that they were playing baseball and the ball hit her eye. She started to cry because her eye was bleeding. In order to hush her up, he hit her in the head with a bat. Josh dragged her back into his house and she still wouldn't keep quiet, so he stabbed her several times. He is currently serving a sentence of life in prison without parole. Andrew Golden and Mitchell Johnson, ages 11 and 13, planned a school shooting that killed 5 people and injured 10 others at Westside Middle School. Andrew was able to steal guns and ammunition from his grandfather's collection. On the day of the shooting, while Mitchell was in the woods preparing the guns, Andrew pulled the fire alarm so teachers and students would be outside the school. Andrew quickly went into the woods to grab the guns, and both came back to the school and opened fire on the crowd. The boys tried to escape into the woods, but the police quickly captured them. Andrew and Mitchell were tried in juvenile court and will be held as juvenile delinquents until they turn 18, with 3 years of additional confinement for weapon charges. At the age of 13, Eric Smith killed 4-year-old Derek Robbie, a young boy who was walking alone to a summer day camp in a local park. Eric was heading to the same summer camp at the time when he saw Derek. Eric lured him to the nearby woods. He strangled and beat Derek to death with a rock. Eric was sentenced 9 years to life in prison and has been denied parole 7 times since. In 1993, John Venables and Robert Thompson, both at the age 10, were found guilty of murder. These 2 young boys kidnapped and killed a 2-year-old boy by the name of James Bulger. At the time, James was at a shopping mall with his mother before being kidnapped. While his mother was occupied somewhere else, Robert and John lured James away from the mall. The 2 boys took the young toddler to a railway line and proceeded to torture and kill James. Police were able to connect the murder of James Bulger to Robert and John from video footage showing them kidnapping the young boy from the mall. Both have been sentenced to custody. "12-year-old Jasmine Richardson and her 23-year-old boyfriend killed her family in cold blood. Jasmine believed that killing her parents would bring her closer to her boyfriend. Jasmine's 8-year-old brother was stabbed to death along with her parents. She claimed that the reason they killed her brother was because it would be too cruel to leave him as an orphan. When the bodies were discovered, officers feared that she may have been kidnapped. However, due to evidence found later on, they came to believe Jasmine was involved in the crime. Not long after, Jasmine and her boyfriend were both found and arrested. Jasmine was sentenced to 10 years of imprisonment, which was the maximum sentence allowed after the Youth Criminal Justice Act was passed. Her boyfriend Jeremy was sentenced to 3 concurrent life sentences in prison and possible parole after serving 25 years. Jesse Pomeroy was an infamous underage murderer who tied up and tortured many young boys between the ages of 7 and 11. He would give the victims a brutal beating and cut them with his knife. When he was caught and sentenced the first time, he was sent to reform school for 6 years, but was released early due to good behavior. In 1874, at the age of 14, Jesse tortured and killed 2 young kids named Katie Curran and Horace Millen. Jesse was found guilty of the murders and was given a death sentence, which was later changed to life in prison. "14-year-old Barry Lukatis walked into his algebra class and shot his teacher and 2 students to death at Frontier Middle School in Washington. Then he held the class hostage for a few minutes before a teacher subdued him until authorities arrived. He is currently serving 2 life sentences and an additional 205 years without the possibility of parole. In 2010, at the age of 12, Paul Gingrich was thought to be the youngest person in Indiana to ever be sentenced to prison as an adult. The boy was accused of helping kill a friend's stepfather in a runaway plot. Many believe that the boy could have been manipulated into helping his friend. After pleading guilty, Paul was sentenced to 25 years in prison and the possibility of early release on good behavior. In 2015, the court underwent a legal do-over that led to his adult sentence. Amarjeet Sardar was 8 years old when he murdered 3 babies in cold blood. The victims included his 9-month-old cousin and 8-month-old sister. He also snatched a 6-month-old infant at a school while no one was looking. Amarjeet then quietly took her to a nearby field where he killed her. Soon after, police discovered the child's body. The officer questioned Amarjeet and he admitted to beating her to death with a stone. The villagers claimed that Amarjeet also killed his sister and cousin, which the family covered up. Under Indian law, a child cannot be sentenced to prison or death. Amarjeet has been placed in a detention home until he turns 18. Hey guys, thanks for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe.